Ms. El Rhazoui, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being in Buitenhof. Now, you live in France, but you grew up in Morocco. Why did you live there?
Why did I leave? Because I was a journalist in Morocco, and I'm actually grateful to Morocco because it's the country where I learned journalism, and it wasn't an easy place at all to learn journalism. So, because the regime just shut off my newspaper, and after the Arab Spring, many arrests started amongst the journalists. So I was afraid for my freedom, and I just left. Yeah. That's how I landed in Charlie Hebdo.
And you ended up in Charlie Hebdo, and we all know Charlie Hebdo in the Netherlands, unfortunately, mostly because of the attacks that happened there. Where were you when those attacks happened?
Well, I was lucky that day. I didn't come to the meeting. I was in Casablanca in Morocco, so I survived.
By chance?
By chance, yeah. I was supposed to be there, but I wasn't.
And I saw a documentary on your life, and in that documentary you warn that this could happen, and you also see your colleagues not really believing you. So how did that feel when your warnings came true?
Well, we expected something like that to happen, but we didn't expect it to be as bloody as that. We knew that Shab, our director, he had a contract on his head. He had a fatwa by Al-Qaeda on his head. So we imagined, yeah, we didn't exclude that one day he might be killed, but we didn't just imagine a commando to come to the newspaper and just execute everyone. And yeah, this was actually the worst scenario that happened.
Yeah, and you yourself ended up on a hit list only days after that attack, and so your life has been threatened.
Yeah, because I was the only Arab in Charlie Hebdo, the only Muslim, and the only one who spoke to Arabic medias in Arabic to tell them what Charlie Hebdo was, what was our work, and to take the defense of my colleagues and of the secular views that we stood for in Charlie Hebdo. So this was unbearable for Islamists, you know, to see an Arab woman, Muslim woman, working in Charlie Hebdo and still taking the defense of those people. So this woman just, you know, they just said we need to eliminate her. But here I am today.
You're still here,
yeah.
Still, I mean, threatened ever since. So how do you cope with that threat?
I changed a lot, and I learned that true security, we can only find it inside ourselves. That's how I live today, you know. I just trust the universe, I trust who I am, and I don't want to live surrounded by men in weapon all the time. I don't want to carry this fear. And you know what I've always said, even in the midst of that threats, I've always said I feel more free than those who threaten me because they have that jail inside, and at least I try to stay free inside.
Yeah. In the documentary I just mentioned, you also said, my life has been shaped by this extreme violence. So how does that work out? How has it been shaped?
Well, you know, it's a life where every step you take has to be, you have to think about it in advance. And it also shows me what are important things in life. You know, if I had to do it again, I would do it again. If I had to choose between a fake feeling of freedom, which the price would be to remain silent on things that should be called out, I would still call out the wrong things and be threatened, you know. I think that the goal of the life is not just to succeed in life and have a fancy job and fancy house and fancy car and fancy stuff. No, I think that the goal of life is to be free.
Even if you have to pay such a hefty price to be it.
Of course, of course. And you know what? some people paid the price without saying what I said. Look at all the victims of terrorist attacks everywhere in Europe. They weren't necessarily outspoken, but they were killed by the same ideology I'm calling out. So my views are, my idea is that when we see something wrong, we have to say it. And the less people talk, the more they put in danger those who have the courage to speak. So we should be more...
Everybody should speak out.
Everybody should speak out, so we lesser the danger on those on the very few who have the courage to
Is that what freedom of expression means to you?
Yeah.
Freedom.
Freedom and dignity.
Freedom and dignity.
Freedom and dignity. What would a fake freedom mean if we remain silent on wrong things? It's the end of our humanity, and it is why I am still here today to talk about what's happening in Palestine. You know.
Let's get to that, because you were applauded in France for exactly the things you're saying now. You got a prize. I have to explain this to the Dutch viewer. It's a very prestigious prize. It's called the Simone Weil Prize. It's named after a famous French feminist, a Holocaust survivor, Simone Weil. We can see her at the screen. So you got that prize, but the organization took it away because of one retweet that compared the state of Israel, or Zionism, to the Nazis, which is hugely offensive to many people. And why did you retweet that?
This tweet was done by a Jewish person. I have to mention this, and it's a retweet. And
did you agree?
Well, you know, for me, the teaching of the Shoah was never again. The teaching of Simone Weil was never again, but never again for all humanity. I think that those who pretend that they are offended by such a retweet, by such a comparison, actually they are just hiding what they really want to say. What they really want to say is that let Israel kill. They are basically using the memory of the Shoah survivors to justify crimes, and this is the biggest offense to Shoah survivors. If a Shoah survivor told me, Zineb, I am offended by that tweet, I would apologize.
Have they not yet been in touch?
But this is not what happened. You always have people talking in the name of Shoah survivors who are trying to justify crimes in the name of their suffering. I think that Shoah survivors and what happened during the Shoah told us that it is wrong to think that a human life does not equal another human life.
But your critics will say you can make that point without using the Holocaust as a mode of expression.
The Holocaust belongs to everyone, and it belongs particularly... Yes, I think that...
Does it not belong specifically more to the people that went through it?
I think that the teaching of Holocaust is a universal teaching. And of course, what happened to Jewish people and to Roma people and to specific minority that were targeted by the Holocaust. And by the way, the retweet I did was by a Jewish person who is the grandson of someone who was a resistant during the World War.
Do you think that makes it okay?
I think that the biggest danger here is to accept that speech pretending that the Israeli narrative is the only narrative representing Jewish people. I personally prefer to always mention that there is a big diversity amongst the Jewish people, that this Israeli criminal state is not the representative of Jewish people. It pretends to be so. It pretends to be the natural result of the Holocaust, but it is not.
To what extent is this personal to you? Because I understand you were at the border in Rafah in 2009. Did that shape your view of the conflict?
You know, the question of Palestine is a question of human rights, of justice. And we were born to a world where we knew that something wrong was happening, that there is an apartheid regime, an occupation situation.
That's a term that Amnesty International uses. Apartheid.
Exactly, and it's like, I mean, these are human rights terms. When I traveled to Rafah in 2009 during an Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip, in 2009 I could already witness as a journalist that Israel was using non-reglementary weapons. They were basically using white phosphorus.
That's been confirmed only recently by Human Rights Watch, I understand.
But it was confirmed to me in 2009 by doctors who were working on the ground. I also witnessed at the time that children under 10 were injured by bullets. So they were targeted basically by Israeli snipers. They were not only injured in bombings, but they were injured, they were targeted by snipers. So I knew, of course, that something deeply wrong was happening there. And that's why I cannot accept to remain silent on that.
Because we invited you also to talk about the freedom of speech, and you devoted your life to that. But I can imagine that people who agreed with you before, when you spoke out after Charlie Hebdo, do not agree with you now.
Oh, that was shocking for me, you know.
Have you lost people as friends?
Oh, I'm happy to have lost those friends. You know why? Because I don't want a friend who doesn't consider that a Palestinian kid is equal to an Israeli kid.
But can you imagine that some people in this debate will say, but I also have the right to hurt. Not only the right, freedom of expression, but if people get hurt by what I say, that's okay. But where's the line between getting hurt and being hateful?
You know, I think that in terms of freedom of speech, there is nothing such the right not to be hurt. There is something called the right to free speech. And the law is very clear about that. You know, as journalists, for instance, we know the limit. I can say my opinion, I can say facts, but I cannot call out, I cannot call people to exert violence. I cannot have a racist speech, for instance. These are offenses in the law. These are. I don't consider, for instance, that racism.
So you say
is free
only
speech.
the law.
Sorry?
You say only the law is the one that decides.
I think as journalists, yes, this is why the law exists, because after the law, each one is left to his own education, his own beliefs, and his own public, you know. For instance, in Charlie Hebdo, when people wanted to silence us, what did they say? They said, oh, it's offensive to us. We said, okay, we understand that some people might be offended, but in that case, we suggest they don't buy the newspaper. I mean, it's not compulsory to read it, you know? And it is just the same today. But regarding what's happening in Gaza, I don't see how calling out all those crimes can be offensive to anyone. Because here we're not talking about psychological offenses, we're talking about actual people being killed.
Real offensive. Ms. El Rhazoui, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Bedankt voor het kijken. Vond je dit nou een goed gesprek? Vergeet je dan niet te abonneren. Een like of een comment achterlaten kan natuurlijk ook. Oh ja, dit gebeurde er de vorige keer.
Expats zijn echt van grote toegevoegde waarde van de Nederlandse economie. De Nederlandse beroepsbevolking, de groei daarvan, komt tot stilstand in de komende jaren.